Hi, everybody, and welcome to the RHAP B&B for the finale of Survivor 43. My name is Mike Bloom, and what? 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 Yeah, we're gonna have many words right now. I have no words. This has been one of the wildest outcomes in 20 plus years of watching this fantastic show that I have ever experienced, and I am elated that we get to talk about what was, in my opinion, a very silly outcome on a very silly podcast. Let's bring in the group that is going to try to put cumulatively our own final three heads together to figure out the ending of Survivor 43. First, my personal ride or die, someone who I am much more public about than apparently the actual Ride or Dies Alliance on Survivor 43, Liana Boraas. Liana, how are you?
I'm doing well. I think in response to what, I would just say, huh? Because that has been just the consistent through line, I think, in recovering almost from what we witnessed on Wednesday night. But I'm hoping that we can start to make some sense. Or look, even if there's no sense to be made, we're going to have a great time regardless.
Exactly. No sense to be made, but a great time regardless is kind of like my encapsulation of Survivor 43 in general, I think, when you look back on the narrative. Well, someone that is certainly going to add to that nonsense is someone we are so elated to welcome back to the B&B. You know him most pertinently as Washington Post TikTok guy, I believe was like the official lower third, right, that you had when you appeared on news media. Since he is so close to mainstream news, I think he's the most likely to give us the scoop on everything that went down in the finale. Of course, the great Dave Jorgenson, though it seems like from your Chiron here, do you want me to just call you by your last name?
Yeah, I'm going with the Gabler, the way of whatever they described him on the website, which was Mike Gabler. That's who I am now. And my response to your what is a yes with 2 exclamation points.
Yes, that is though the answer of a Survivor player. Dave is of course referring to the very first glimpse we got of Gabler was his bio, in which the question was, why do you deserve to be the sole survivor? And he just answered yes with 2 exclamation points. Ironically enough, without a smiley face underneath it. Maybe that's something he could get tattooed on his butt cheek after this, considering it's an answer that arguably won him $1 million.
Yeah. I have so much to say. I told you all both. I accidentally spoiled myself because I was not able to watch the show live, and it was really funny when I woke up and read Twitter. And the first tweet I saw was Zach. I can't remember his last name. I always say Catch. I don't know his real last name. But he tweeted, and it was Wendell holding up, and it had been photoshopped the check to say Gabler, and Wendell looks really sad. I was like, well, that can't be real.
Oh no, they got you.
But it was the best spoiler because then I watched the finale, and maybe this will be helpful to our conversation, kind of knowing what happened. And I do think, and I think a lot of people have talked about this on Twitter and Reddit and elsewhere, that like a rewatch is going to help make more sense of it. And watching the finale, knowing that there was a lot of clues, but like it didn't make more sense. It just, there's clues in the edit.
Yeah, it doesn't explain it, but at least maybe you could know it was coming.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so all that being said, Dave, I'd love to lead with like 2 very big and very separate questions because I feel like there might be different answers. What were your thoughts about Survivor 43 as a whole going into the finale? And then I suppose like the finale itself, as much as you're talking about perhaps the proof being there in the pudding in retrospect, did that move the needle one way or the other for you on your thoughts overall about the season?
I think in contrast to at least a lot of people that I know, like friends and coworkers I've forced to watch Survivor, which there are a lot now. There's a whole, I don't know if I told you, there's a Slack channel to post. I've gotten like 10 people to watch, like that are fans. And I mean, like not just fans of a season, like they've been watching since whatever season I told them to start watching.
Wow, doing that recruitment.
Yeah, I really am. You're welcome, CBS and Paramount Plus. But no, I really was liking it just as a slow burn season, and I do think it is one, again, to reiterate on the rewatch, which will be interesting. I'm the type of person that but I really like overall, I'd like to look at seasons as a whole. I don't like to think about the winner too much in my overall like feeling of how the season is. Obviously it can help move the needle, but so I like the season overall. I think the finale is bonkers, but for me, I think it's really good for Survivor the show because people are just going to be talking about this constantly. Like it's even no matter how you feel about it, like people are fired up in one direction or another. So I think as far like, and if you watch it with that in mind, I think the editors knew that. Like they set it up where you can blame certain people in the jury, for instance, as to the results. And I think that's kind of intentional. I think they want like either you to have an angry or happy reaction to the finale versus like when it's a lukewarm season, like maybe an Island of the Idols. It wasn't like they were setting people up to hate Tommy. It was just like, oh, Tommy won. I think in this case, it's like they're setting you up to have a certain feeling about it. I don't know if I'm making sense here.
No,
I'm describing it.
Well, I think what is super interesting, and I'll talk about this in a larger capacity. I guess I'll give the plugs early on. Is that I think due to the large year that was Survivor in 2022, I'm going to be doing a podcast next week with Rob and Shannon Gus, just kind of like talking about the state of Survivor in 2022. And what I do find interesting is that they are two very different people and characters, but I do find it interesting to see Marianne and Gabler win. Two people who I do think, though, usually if you look at a Survivor cast, you're like, oh, they're cast completely as personalities. They're not among like the 5 or 6 people that could probably win in the preseason. And I do think, again, people, I think very understandably have quibbles with this win. But I think it is sort of this mark of, any path can be taken. Any type of person can win Survivor. It takes the right narrative, the right jury, the right momentum, but it's something that can be pulled off.
Yeah.
I think for me, the narrative that I like, that I think sort of aligns with what Dave is saying, is that and this has been said in some exit interviews and exit press, of the editing was almost like what the jury was experiencing on the island, right? That was like Jesse is the front runner. We saw Jesse and Carla as the front runner. Jesse and Carla are the front runners. Carla gets taken out. Jesse gets taken out. What the hell do we do now? I mean, even Carla is like reflecting upon like, okay, well, we were championing Jesse and now he's gone. What are we going to do as jurors? Right. And I think that that's kind of like what we felt as well. I think, though, why did we write off Gabler so hard? Because I definitely did. And now I'm like re-examining myself of like, oh my God, was I biased against 50-something-year-old heart valve specialist? I don't know, but I don't know why.
Just prick.
I've always said that about you. She
I
hates
know, right?
heart valve specialists. So
Yes.
Look, it's a personal vendetta, okay, guys? I'm trying to shake my implicit bias.
Good.
But that, like, so, like maybe it was there. And Mike, you and I had talked about this a couple of weeks ago about the idea of the Gabler nuggets. And like, I was like, there are these little things about Gabler. What do they mean? I thought it was because he was a losing finalist, but apparently it's no, because he won the freaking season.
No, I think it's a really interesting question as to, now there's a lot that's obviously obscured in the edit, but like how much the narrative, to your point, aligns with the way we should have like everyone perceived Gabler in a manner of speaking, right? That it's like, everyone's doing their thing, and then Gabler's like occasionally there to make quips and have comments about things that he may be doing, but is not incredibly involved in the main vein of things, right? Those are those nuggets that you're talking about, that like he'll be in on the majority, but then he'll have random things like, but nobody's noticing what I'm doing. I totally agree with you. I chalked it up to like, he's going to attempt to explain himself in the final tribal council and like get some votes for it, but ultimately not win it because we're not seeing the relationships that he's making. But it turns out that maybe it was this matter of, all these other people were doing these things. And then once they got taken out, then Gabler was able to step in and vocalize these points that he's been making the entire time. I mean, to the question as to why write him off, I mean, I chalk it up to past precedent for me of just like looking at the type of person that he is, the archetype that he is, and especially this hyper strategic modern era, I would say. He certainly had purposeful gameplay, but I would not say it was as active perhaps as some of those more power players that you were talking about. But again, that speaks a bit more towards the modern era as well, which is we talk about it in Australian Survivor discourse, like the tall poppy syndrome of don't stick your neck out too far, establish yourself as a big force without some sort of backup plan, because if you do, people are immediately going to turn on you and chop your head off. So I will also say the pre-merge edit really did not help, right? All the Baka stuff we got through the first near half of the season was people bagging on Gabler. Whether
I was going to say, Mike, you look kind of uncomfortable. Can I put some palm fronds on you to just?
I'm wearing them. That's why I wore this shirt. I'm literally wearing palm fronds in honor of Gabler.
Yes.
He was throwing blankets on them. Every confessional was people being like, I'm annoyed by Gabler. Oh, look at Gabler the fool. We're going to trick him into thinking that his idol is invalid. Like, it's almost like a Shambo thing in a manner of speaking, right? Where like so much content was about that I'm like, okay, I guess, he'll be a character. I had put out there, I think, at the Ellie vote, I'm like, pencil him in for final 3. I don't see
Mhm.
any reason why you would take Gabler out right now, because I think there would be a perception as well of like, okay, he gets on people's nerves too. Someone I could, but he is loyal, someone I could easily bring with me. So color me surprised. Like you said, Liana, I think it's an opportunity to maybe look back at our own judgments and biases, but also again look back at this really weird story of the season and whether or not that purposely does or does not map onto the actual reality of the way he was being perceived out there.
I wonder. This is. I wonder if Ponderosa would help at all. Like I do miss Ponderosa, and it does. And I obviously like there are a lot of like sort of theories that for instance, Carla turned the jury against Cassie, all that kind of stuff. Even if we didn't see that in Ponderosa, I would still like to just see the overall mood in Ponderosa, because I think then we'd have at least a little bit more of a clue as to what was going on leading up to the finale.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think that's like the biggest thing, because even so, okay, so like Mike, you brought up Marianne. I think you could say similar things about Marianne's edit pre-merge. Oh, she's annoying. She's on the bottom. It's her, Mariah. We're voting one of them out. People discounted her. I think what we saw from Marianne once the merge happened is we saw more of the active strategic moves she was making, even if it was her playing up her emotions when you volunteer to sit out of the challenge, right? And she's kind of like crying about this whole thing. And then we get a confessional saying, I'm doing this on purpose. And I almost feel like all of Gabler's strategic nuggets were never flushed out, because we got the one with him and Owen, for example, I have a plan for us to get to the final 3, which apparently the plan involved Cassidy, and like that actually happened. And so
I would have loved to see that. I would have loved to see,
yes.
you talk about foreshadowing. I would have loved to see in that moment him saying like, I have a plan to get you, me, and Cassidy to the final 3. I think that would have played a lot better when you see the final outcome, and then maybe you do sort of look at Gabler and you're like, okay, you had this plan, you ended up putting it into motion. Kudos to you.
Like, even to think that there would have been an equal chance of Gabler and Cassidy, or just like, because I mean, and maybe this is because the internet was so hive mind on Cassidy to a certain extent. And I think that I personally never saw that at all. I didn't know where people were coming from in terms of that read of the edit. But as soon as Jesse went out and filed fire making, I was like, oh, Cassidy's got this. Like, it's in the bag. And I stopped. I even thought Gabler was going to get medevac somehow in the final episode, because like he kept talking about like, oh, I'm so burnt out. I'm so tired. I was like, does he get medevac in the final 4 somehow? He like cuts his hand off doing fire. I don't know. Like, that was in my head over him ever winning the game. And so like, why did I think that way? Again, there was no evidence to me to really suggest like, yes, he's got the ability to win over a jury, which he clearly did. So I want to know more of why.
Did you all, so personally as an Owen truther for like the last 10 weeks, I was sure Owen was going to win. Did either of you, like I was convinced. I don't know. I don't know. It just got in my head and I couldn't remove it. I just thought maybe, because I did think it was going to be a bitter jury, and I felt maybe that because he voted incorrectly, it's almost like a Sandra in Heroes versus Villain situation where he doesn't. So I thought and he even said the Sandra code. I'm like, okay, got it. There it is. But I'm wondering when we got to the final 3 in the episode, if either of you thought that like Owen had what the chances between Owen, Cassie, and Gabler, like how you would rank them in terms of winners, or
for him to rebound in Tribal and to say like, oh, that was really fun. I really, really, really appreciate someone having that attitude. So I think that combined with his underdog story, I think you could make an argument. And we heard from some of the exit press that it was all about how the survivors sold their own story. And so I think that what Owen maybe just missed a little bit of the mark in terms of how he needed to sell it to these particular jurors. I mean, because what did you feel about the final Tribal performance? And like, do you feel like what Owen said would have been enough to like encapsulate his game?
I don't know. I think he was okay. I was talking to Brendan Shapiro of Ghost Island yesterday about this, and the idea.
Name drop.
Yes, I know. I was talking to pre-merger, you may know, in the DC area.
Not a big deal.
Yeah. Forming my network of potential second chancers. I gotta be on the show first. Anyway, so I was talking to him about it, and like the idea that, going in the jury, the sort of myth or not myth that the jury actually has their minds made up when they go in. And I do think that the jury at least has a feeling about who they like a lot. And so for Gabler going in, as soon as he says something, they're just like, ha ha ha, Gabler, la la la. But as soon as Cassie says something, it's a very negative reaction. And I think that like for the people that are getting these reactions. So Cassie, as soon as she sees it's negative, she starts to kind of shrink. And same with Owen, where it's like, oh, like they're not loving me. Whereas if you're Gabler and you're getting positive feedback, you're going to feel better and better. So like that sort of confirmation bias going in is already going to affect their performance within the first few minutes, just based off of how people are reacting to them. I think like if you go in and at the very least, if the jury is like sort of lukewarm, that's fine. But if they're like already negative, it's really hard to crawl up from that. And I think Owen and Cassie both experienced that.
Yeah, and that's something that was unexpected, right? You know, they talked about that during that steak dinner of like, yeah, we'll take Gabler because I think we can beat Gabler. You know, again, from our perspective, I don't think it was necessarily unfounded. Obviously, a big surprise. I think they are definitely the only finalists I can remember in recent memory who had a shocked reaction to the winner reveal. I think it also did not help them that we've only done on-island reveals 4 times now, season 1 and now 41 through 43. Everyone else has had the luxury of like months and months where they could figure out, okay, I won or I lost. So it wasn't exactly like, oh my God, I can't believe this actually happened. But you bring up a great point, Dave, and Cassidy, you know, exposed this to me in my interview with her of like, she did feel like the jury came in with a bit of a wall up against her. And maybe that's sort of allowed her to get on the defensive or throw her off a little bit. And definitely the worm was starting to turn for me when I saw how much people were eating up the Alec Gabler stuff. That like sometimes this does happen, right? With like our comedic characters that people are like, oh, I'm not going to vote for you, but thanks for making this a fun hour and a half of a final tribal council. But like they were legitimately enjoying the narrative that he ended up putting out there. To go back to your Owen question, I think in a different season with a different jury with a different narrative, that's the beautiful thing about the jury system, right? It's like they all have different pieces of criteria. Carla talked about that checklist. We saw it in a season like Nicaragua, right? Where like someone could come in and say, I made bonds with you and I didn't make the moves, but like I was still able to make it through by my own gumption. And they say, that's very true. Let's give you the money. I think there is reason to make that argument for Owen. It did not work with this jury in particular because granted, I've only talked with 2 out of the 8 jurors in Jesse and Carla, but it does seem the overall timbre of the jury was like, tell us what moves you made. Tell us what you influenced, which again, I think goes back to this idea of, okay, all the bigger players ended up getting taken out, mainly at 8, with Noel at 6, at 5, at 4. So like, tell us stuff that you did that they didn't do. And Owen, you know, himself finishes off his final statement, essentially the final tribal council is him being like, I didn't drive any votes. I can't say that I played this game with idols and with advantages. And that is incredibly, you know, humble and realistic on his part, which I think, again, very much speaks to Owen's character, which was he really was the voice of the audience from so much of it. At the same time, does not work in the most persuasive settings, right? Especially when the jury it's seemingly looking for a crumb of anything to show like active gameplay. Owen was like, I can BS in front of you, but I really can't say that I was doing that type of stuff you wanted me to do.
That's so tough because I think he had the self-awareness on lock, which you absolutely have to have. And I think that ended up being a little bit of Cassidy's downfall was like her thinking, we see it with the Ryan stuff. I mean, that's a classic example of like, yeah, it was part of the reason why Ryan went out. No. So the fact that Owen really had that down, but at the same time, how do you make that narrative be persuasive, right? Because I almost even wonder, like, what could he have said that was still being realistic and being self-aware while spinning it in a way that does make him feel like he's got at least a sense of agency or that he adapted to moving through the game in order to, you know, to be where he was sitting in the final 3. So, and you know, it's actually really interesting too, because Gabler has that one confessional where he talks about separating their games from their pairs. And I almost kind of feel like because Gabler was there, Owen couldn't separate his game from Gabler's, which was maybe a little bit of an under the radar game. But Gabler had so many more connections that I think it was just, it's tough to compare the 2.
Yeah, I don't, this is all extremely like Monday morning quarterback, Monday night quarterback, Monday, whatever, the day after I'm a quarterback. And, but I feel like that Owen really needed to lie more if he had any chance at winning. And I think some people get away with that and some people don't. And I think there's Owen, the super fans going, well, I don't want to humiliate myself by just like putting kind of what happened with Cassidy, where she sort of got called out for not correctly knowing what happened on a vote. And I think he probably was aware enough, like, I'm probably not going to win, and I don't want to make a crazy move that's going to like just make it look even worse. Like I think he wanted that second place vote. So that's my guess. I don't know. But it just seems like at that point, like if you're going in and you feel like you have a very low shot, you have to just try whatever works. And I think Owen kind of went in the opposite way, more humble, which again is true to his character, and that's great, but that's not like a winning play.
It's very Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, Charlie Brown, would be like, all right, if I have to do this,
yeah,
I got here by luck. I don't know why I'm here. I'm so sorry. Don't give me the money. Like Charlie Brown would quit in the final three.
He broke
his stick. Oh, poor Owen, like kicking the sand and chopping the coconut. Like it almost as if Charlie Brown hulked out, right? Like if Charlie Brown snapped one day, if the Peanuts kids just pushed him a bit too far, I think that's what we saw from Owen.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Well, let's start getting into our predictions about this final five, which I think will then also kind of segue to our overall talks about this very interesting group of castaways. Because like we said, right, we had these two, I would say, larger players and characters of the season in Carla and Jesse, and then three definitely vital parts of the season. But I would say, definitely a bit more of a question mark in Cassidy and Gabler and Owen. I tweeted this out. Definitely, in my opinion, I would say the most like sort of WTF final three since Edge of Extinction, which obviously had extenuating circumstances. But even beyond that, I would say definitely fitting that category for the most in Survivor history. You have your Gabones up there, but usually there's like at least one main character, quote unquote, that is a part of that final three. We did not necessarily get that here. And I guess that was the onus of the narrative of the season, but it was just so interesting to now look at this group and be like, how did we get here after all that?
I don't know. I almost feel like we've had a lot of what could have been WTF final threes if the season had been edited differently, right? Because I think that the idea of the two big strategic threats or the strategic threat gets taken out before the final three is pretty common. Like that's something, especially in the modern era of Survivor, that happens all the time. So I actually don't necessarily think that this is such a WTF final three inherently, but it definitely comes across that way based on how the stories were told this season.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely try. Owen, I don't know what the final confessional count was, but Owen had to be way up there in terms of like, in almost the narrator of the season, and like as we already pointed out, like the person that looked through the fans' eyes, like we were definitely getting his perspective and point of view most of the time. But I don't. I would agree with you mostly, Liana, that we've had weirder final threes that have definitely happened. We just we dealt with it fine because the edit was completely different. I don't hate that the final three was so out of the blue and crazy and weird. I just want more reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I think like really unpredictability is good. I agree. I think unpredictability without like substance, I think that's the balance that we want, right? It's like we want an anyone can win scenario, but then we don't want an anyone can win, but I don't also understand why that person won scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of the confessionals, Owen had 10.7%. The only two people beating him were Carla and Jesse. So like, if anything, you could even say like, oh, Owen is the one that we could potentially expect to win just solely based on presence. But I think just because he was the strong narrator throughout the season, I think that's probably, why he ends up with such a high confessional count.
This is a pretty... So good. Okay, we'll go. This is a pretty boring question that is always asked now, like since heroes or healers, hustlers / hot dogs. Okay. The idea that like, does the fire making challenge, like, does that help or hurt this season in this case?
Well,
I'm not sure.
I mean, but I would say it was arguably the determining outcome of the season for many reasons. That is something that has definitely been the discussion point as to like whether or not this should still be a thing, is that Jesse and Carla at least vocalized to me that one of the reasons they voted for Gabler outright is Gabler beat Jesse at fire making, right? It's going back to the Chris Underwood of it all. It's this idea of if you can slay the dragon and you have that blood gleaming on your armor, then you deserve to be the new king. And that was their perspective, that it was like, okay, we're looking for the moves that you all made. You taking out Jesse was a move. Now, look, does it fit with the logic that Cassidy won immunity and put Gabler there in the first place, and therefore also should have gotten credit, maybe sometimes even more credit for doing that? No. But I think very much this was definitively a season where the fire making challenge not only literally determined the winner, but also very much informed the jury's logic in deciding a winner.
So I guess then the obvious question, which you may have already answered in a previous podcast, so forgive me, but or I guess not. You haven't done a podcast since the finale, right? So I think the final three would have stayed the same because Cassie wins immunity, and they all would have voted Jesse out if they're smart. So the final three is the same, but now the reasoning is different. Does that at all affect, or did they find a different reason to vote for Gabler at that point?
I mean, that's the thing is that the answers that Gabler gave and the answers that Cassidy gave, if we consider her to be the second place finisher, then
I mean, literally she was.
Well,
so.
yeah. No, I mean, I know, but even if like it's deciding
if we look at the numbers,
if we consider James's vote, I think that the answers outside of the final fire making still would give it to Gabler in the end. I think that, and that's the thing. Okay, it ends up being the same final three, but one thing that I think it does change is it changes how you approach 6, 5, and 4, those votes, because what you're doing is you're trying to either prepare yourself to beat someone in fire making, because let's say you're Jesse and you have, Cody's got an idol, you've got an idol, you guys are both going to be safe. Like, let's say they take out Carl at 6, they go into the final 5, they're safe, they just vote Cody out unless he wins immunity. Like it instead of having the guarantee that he would be up against you potentially in fire, like it does change your mentality approaching those final votes, knowing that it's not a strict vote out at 4. So I almost feel like even though it would have been the final 3, there could have been some rolling consequences of that in the earlier votes of the season. To me, I see final fire making as almost just like a second immunity challenge. You just know what the immunity challenge is going to be. And do I want 2 immunity challenges going into the final 3? No, I do not. So I think that like that's more of what it's based on, is that like I don't think that the final 3, 2 of the people in the final 3 should be determined on their challenge ability. Like I don't like that.
Not only that, I would argue not only is it a second immunity challenge, it's a more important immunity challenge.
Well,
right?
yeah.
Because it's in front of the jury.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing that Dalton Ross was making an argument, right, with like the whole Ben versus Chrissy stuff, is like, this is something that you are doing for single-handedly defeating Jesse. Going back to, Dave, I know a season that in a different multiverse you would have been on, South Pacific, like, Sophie was able to get the credit for defeating Ozzy because she had that immunity challenge win. If there was this secondary element, if for some reason, like, Ozzy's able to get Coach to tie up the vote, and then somebody beats Ozzy in fire making, they could have arguably gotten more credit than Sophie did. And so I do think it's the public nature of fire making as well that gives it arguably now even more weight. Now, I don't think anyone's going to 4D chess it and be like, I'm going to throw the immunity challenge, so then I'm going to put myself into fire. But Jeff is waiting. He is waiting. People have been asking, like, should we get rid of fire? Should we get rid of fire making after this? Jesse lost. It is the complete opposite, my friends. Jeff was salivating at the idea that Gabler and Owen both wanted to put themselves into fire. Like, he is so thrilled by that idea. It is here to stay.
I'm going to make a really weird comparison, but let's just pretend it works. I'm not a poli-sci. I don't have my PhD in political science like Jesse, but I feel like now with the fact that the final 5, you can play your idol up to the final 5, and then you have the final 4 fire making, all that stuff. Voting is no longer relevant after the final 6 anymore. It's like it's become the electoral college of Survivor, where it's outdated, and we need to like reevaluate and see like maybe this isn't the best system for deciding the winner, because it no longer matches what the outcome should be. Again, the winner should be the winner, but it feels a little bit like we've done so many things that voting no longer matters on Survivor.
Yeah, you won the popular vote, but you lost the election, that kind of situation. Yeah, it's got
Cassidy definitely won. I sound like Russell Hantz right now in that way, but I just mean that like, just in terms of the popular vote amongst like how, I don't know, just like how people are thinking about it. Like they're no longer thinking about and the reason I bring up Jesse, honestly, is because they're not thinking about how they should vote and how they should convince people to vote. They're thinking about, I need to win this challenge. I need to win fire making. I need to play my idol. It's no longer about actually voting.
Well, it's also tough because, and this was talked about all the way back in 35, I think maybe by Adam or maybe by Dr. Mike himself, that like, I think what's tough is not even just Final Four fire making, but that idols are good through 5. So it's like, there's not even, to your point, like 6 is the last round of quote unquote normal voting because 5, idols can still be pulled out. So it's not exactly a straightforward vote. And now we're sort of eliminating all that to, again, I would say try to produce this outcome. And again, I don't begrudge production too much because they want to make good TV. They want popular winners. And so they're like, let's try to make this happen as much as we can. Lo and behold, hey, it just so happens that when there are big players at the end of Survivor, no matter what round it may be at, people are going to try to get rid of them because that's the nature of the game. That's how people logically play. And I feel like it's just trying to throw yourself against a brick wall at certain points to try to prevent certain outcomes from happening. But like, that's the name of the game. You know, Jesse had those opportunities. He had immunity challenges. He had fire making. Those were not things that he was good at. And so as a result, even if you throw in things that help those types of players, it still may not work out.
Jesse, like, it was just, it kind of became funny at the end, him not being able to win any of the immunity challenges. It was like he put all of his points into strategy and social and had 0 points left over for challenges.
Yeah, he rolled himself a D&D character. Yeah, like, oh, I'm going to create a like hyper-intelligent wizard. And then it's like you get into melee combat and you're like, I swing my stick. And it's like, well, you didn't get past the armor class and you just get absolutely, you know.
And Jeff as the dungeon master is just constantly announcing it. And Jesse, who's the only person left who hasn't won immunity.
I know.
If I was ever a DM, I would 100% announce combat like it was a Survivor challenge.
I love that.
All right, well, let's get into some of our predictions here about this Final 5. And like we said, we got to start with some of these big players. Let's start with the first person to go out in the Final 5. Carla, big presence preseason, big presence throughout the season. So I'll start with Carla here. I did have Carla making the jury, not the finale. I said that she would become an early social hub on Coco, which often makes her the arbiter of many decisions pre-merge. I also gave her a hashtag cruise control, which, damn, that's pretty good if I do say so myself, because her last name is Cruz.
Cruz, yeah. I love that.
Man, I wish I could have brought in there. She finds an idol and ends up using it when she realizes everyone is ganging up on her, a la Shan/Drea. Unfortunately, she can't escape the target closing in around her forever. She does deliver the most memorable exit of the season, jokingly flipping people off and thanking Jeff and the show for letting her represent. So she like half-coded it, I guess, in my prediction. And this is a bit of a TBD. She gets the Sia money, the news of which will emotionally be delivered to her while she's in the classroom.
Okay.
So we'll see about that.
If anyone gets Sia money, it's gotta be Jesse.
I think,
Jesse, Noelle could be the other one.
Noelle. There's also, I mean, someone did just give away all of their money to charity.
You think Gabler's going to get it back?
I think he might get his return on investment.
I mean, that's a bad ROI. He gave away $1 million and got what?
Maybe she matches it though.
I think she might match it plus interest.
Yeah, as a donation, like match because he's so adamant about donate. I don't know. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So I said his closest ally, her closest ally would be everyone. Her enemy would be Jesse/Owen. She'd have 46 confessionals, and the randomly generated phrase for Carla was, "He swore he just saw his sushi move."
Oh my god!
I could see her saying that a reward, like
maybe it's going back to remember when they were talking about like, oh, Cody's like, oh, what should I steal from Coco, and he's like, oh, I want to take their fishing gear, and they're like no, he's like, I don't want to take their fishing gear. He's like, we can't eat raw fish, Cody. Please take their fishing gear.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, this is going to be a tight one. So I had Carla making the finale. And I said that Carla's social game is top tier. Playing mock Survivor at the bar with her friends gives her the strategic edge to make the finale.
I forgot about that.
I know, right? I said, however, after losing her closest ally, Lindsay, that was a universe we could have lived in. At Final 6, Carla is a sitting duck and gets the hero's exit at Final 5, where she gives an emotionally inspiring speech at Tribal. I said she gave it maybe on the way out. Definitely a Tribal. Yeah. It's not emotionally inspiring.
Okay, look. I was emotional.
Yeah. Carla gets the knowledge is power advantage, aka Kip. I'm calling it Kip now. She gets the Kip advantage from Shipwheel Island and finally manages to break the curse, stealing an extra vote from Dwight.
Nope, she enforced the curse 2 times over.
I know. Curse still exists. Ally was Lindsay, enemy was Ellie, and I had 45 confessionals.
Wow, so we were around in the same range. We both shot under. I think she got 56 total, according to Rob's fact checker.
Yes.
Dave, it's a close competition, neck and neck. Do you have a sense as to who was more on the money? See money, perhaps, on Carla?
I think just by a hair, it's Liana, only because you clearly, in your crystal ball, your tea leaves, you had Cody's leaves in there a little bit, and I think you had mixed in it. But I think just getting the final 5 dead on, and yeah, I think the cruise control hashtag, though, you do get extra points for that.
Yeah, points for Mike.
Yeah.
Hooray!
All right, well, let's move on here to Jesse. Liana, I'm going to start with you because I've been counter maybe what people are thinking. I have been paying attention to these podcasts the past 13 weeks, and I just have a hunch where Jesse may have landed on your overall season.
Yeah, I went 1000% in on Jesse. I drafted Jesse. I had Jesse here as my winner pick, of course. Thought he was absolutely going to win the season. Wrong on that one, but my prediction was that I had him, as I said, the finale, final 3. My fellow PhD holder, still recovering from his defense, runs the Vessi tribe pre-merge with his partner in crime, Justine, Cody. While Jesse played a strong game throughout the season, he secured his win by defeating his partner in crime at the final 4 fire making. Yikes. He gives an outstanding final tribal performance, talking about how he's family oriented. He's doing it for his kids, fam, which I don't know if that's supposed to be like, fam or like family. I don't know
if Jesse has that influencer language.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm doing it for my kids, fam. Not a prediction, just a reminder that he watched Survivor New Zealand. I said that his ally was Justine, his enemy was ? And he had 65 confessionals.
Ooh.
Okay.
That's
well,
close to the confessional count.
They say great minds think alike. I don't know if we're great minds, Liana, but we certainly thought alike here. Jesse was also my winner pick.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like that's very rare. I was trying to think after I realized this, from what I recall, we both picked Morgan Ricky to win Survivor Ghost Island. Yes. And then I know this is outside Survivor, but we both picked Tommy to win Big Brother 21. I feel like outside of that, we have both been very divergent. So this is very much rarefied air that we're in right now. So
it was a smart pick, to be fair to you both.
I know.
He's a matchstick away. Yeah, for sure.
So I said that Jesse would immediately tell everyone about his previous experience in juvenile hall, but not that he has his PhD in political science, which I guess we saw at that final tribal council, right? Where it's like, again, perhaps showcasing that maybe it was not necessarily about the final 3 proper. It was like, I'm going to take a second to reveal something about myself to you all. What that was a very interesting touch. I said that he plays a fairly quiet game in the pre-merge, but when the post-merge hits, he begins to make several swings. He keeps Owen as a shield while also creating, quote, Jesse's Angels to set up the end game in his own way.
Good.
He finds an idol, but never has to use it.
Okay.
But he surprisingly puts in a bad performance at Final Tribal Council than you may think, given his desire to stay away from bashing other people's games and instead set up straw man arguments, perhaps in that PhD method. His closest ally was also Justine.
Oh my god.
Okay.
His enemy
this is going Liana's way right now. Go on.
Wait, but Liana also said Justine. What's going on?
I know. But her one strike against her was Justine. Then you said it, I'm like, well.
I'm probably also digging my hole further. His enemy was Sammy. Instead of ? I said he had a nice even 50 confessionals, and the randomly generated phrase for Jesse was, Doris enjoyed tapping her nails on the table to annoy everyone.
Oh, Doris, my gosh.
Doris is a trifling biatch.
That sounded like a generated phrase. Am I the decision maker in this, or am I just giving my opinion?
You always are. Yeah, you're the Laurel.
Okay. I'm the dungeon master. Okay, this one is really. I almost feel like I should. Well, no, I'm not gonna. I'm not giving back any decisions. No, I think because Liana got the family part so on the nose, and the confessional count has to be pretty close. I don't know what his actual one was.
Yeah, it was 60. It was 60 even. So I think I was off by 10. Liana was off by what, like 5 or so. I think.
Yeah.
By a hair, she gets it. I was gonna say as soon as the Justine thing happened, I was like, well, Mike's gonna get this. But what was it about for both? And actually, I felt similarly pregame that Justine, just based off of like the information we got, I was like, oh, this seems like someone who's gonna do well. What did you all feel like was gonna be the reason that she made it that far?
Yeah, I mean, I think that similar to a lot of people, I think it felt like, oh, she seems pretty smart, seems pretty intelligent. She is in sales, which at the time I thought was a good thing. If you talk to Cody, I guess not.
It would have been the one mark against her.
Exactly. So, I think she had a lot of the components that we see in good Survivor players. And I think that that's part of the reason why I think a lot of us thought she would do well.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. I think she had like good thoughts about the game. She had a good perspective about herself. She's also like outdoorsy. She's also athletic, and I don't think those come across initially as well. So it very much could have been that prototypical mold of like, she's pleasant enough to make it into the post merge, and then like she's actually able to put in work there. But this just really shows how like, random Survivor can be sometimes. Again, if the outcome was not any further indicator, is you look at someone like Justine who had so much in her favor on paper, and it's just like, bad try, bad arrangement, bad Hawaiian salesperson throwing her under the bus, and then she gets targeted and voted out second, where maybe in any other season she'd do well. So it really does, as much as we'd like to commend players for, the strategy that they're able to put out there from an objective perspective, so much of it comes down to who you're on that beach with.
Yeah, it's sort of like argument for, or at least for how the good parts of Edge of Extinction, which is like Rick Devens, no one would remember him right now if that twist didn't exist, because he's voted. I mean, don't you think? Like, not in the same way, and he became such a big character from that season. Otherwise, I think it's just someone who had bad luck and got voted out, and Chris Underwood for that matter.
No, it's interesting because like him. Yeah, and I think it definitely lends credence though to like. The bringing back pre-mergers, right? Like Survivor South Africa did that, this past season with doing like half pre-mergers, half post-measures, and that obviously bore a lot of success. I know that who the hell knows, the returning season is like a Loch Ness monster. We don't know when it's going to pop up, but we know it certainly will exist at some point. But I think it lends a lot of credence to like, there are people who are interesting Survivor players and characters who just got something dealt to them, unfortunately, in the first half of the game. And when you see them play in a different environment and sometimes succeed, like, yeah, you can sometimes see that it's a roll of the dice, a D20, if you will, every time you play Survivor.
I mean, there's a reason why they got cast in the first place, right? Like there was something captivating about them. So just give them a different environment.
Yeah.
All right. Should we go in on Owen? Talk about our white knight here, Owen Knight, in the final 3. So I had Owen making the jury. Again, like Jesse, like Carla, I feel like he was one of those really popular preseason predictions. I think similarly to what we were just talking about with Justine, like just had a lot of good stuff. Obviously, super fandom, really good perspective on himself. Obviously, a lot of like strategic skills, interpersonal skills from admissions. Surprising athletic skills. Like I know people were a little surprised of, oh, he won 3 immunity challenges, but like he played football in high school. Like I think he is reasonably athletic. So I had him making the jury. I said, true to his admissions nature, he gives out acceptance letters to basically everyone on his tribe early on, particularly making close connections with Janine and Ellie, who he does end up, on the wrong side of the vote with. I said, he'll end up pulling off one of the most cutthroat moves of the season when he's told the location of an advantage only to take it from someone else.
No!
Wow.
Which is kind of like what Carla does with him, right? With the word scramble thing.
I kind of give you a point for that, though. It's like you just, again, read the tea leaf just half wrong, but you had it.
Yeah,
right
wrong
there.
cup. Once he gets to the merge, his social capital allows him to take out the bigger threats, but as we've seen before, that puts an even bigger target on him. Late in the game, Jesse flips everything back onto Owen. He grabs Ellie and remaining loose threads like Lindsay and Noelle to get rid of him, saying he's too good to get by any further. After getting voted out, Owen will begin his time on jury, aka the Night's Watch, by saying, "And now my watch begins." His closest ally was Ellie and Janine. His enemy was nobody until Jesse. 44 confessionals, and the randomly generated phrase was, The secret code they created made no sense, even to him.
Well, that's tough to decipher then if it doesn't even make sense to you. Much
I mean,
like
what I
these
realize
phrases.
now is that I essentially predicted how Jesse would do just with Owen.
Yeah, exactly. Just flip the
True.
name and then I think you're okay. Maybe some of the allies. Okay, interesting. So I had Owen making the finale, making the final 3.
Oh, nice.
So I said that Owen created strong bonds early within his tribe and came into the merge with a strong, loyal group. And Ellie was his partner in crime. So I like how we both had the Ellie relationship there. Together, they idled out Lindsay at the final 6. But in his final tribal, the jury couldn't separate his and Ellie's games. So he was a losing finalist.
Wow, Gabler's prophecy.
I know, right? His confessionals are full of Survivor references, and he is a production darling. His ally was Ellie, his enemy was Carla, and he had 57 confessionals.
Ooh. What's the final count for him on confessionals, by the way?
Like 55. I was off by 2.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, 55, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I award Liana this one. But Mike gets a half point for reading the wrong cup, for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that is like weird because that's eerily close. It's just flip a name. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And pulling the advantage,
Yeah,
like getting advantage of, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. No, but you were totally right, Liana, about the Survivor references. And I honestly I know we talk about Survivor being in its meta era, but I was surprised they put as many meta things in there. I guess Owen sort of gave them the ingredients to make the meal, but between like him talking about the opening credits, there's a secret scene when they're talking about the tree meal for Last Gasp, and Owen literally says, "Oh, it's the cover photo when you see Survivor on Netflix." And I'm like, we're actually talking about Survivor on Netflix on the show proper? I never thought this would happen.
He also had a Wordle reference in the finale. He was all over it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's also the man that dropped the Gabler Galleon, which is like a Survivor Reddit. Like, I was obsessed with that.
That is wild. Yeah, for people that didn't know, when I was talking with him, he said he was part of the Gabler Galleon, which was they started this with the Shrunk Train last season. It's like this weekly building Photoshop of like, here's this sort of like kooky guy that we're throwing our support behind, and they kept throwing in like references, and they photoshopped Gabler's face on the front of a ship. It is peak Reddit, and the fact that again he won the season.
He won is
It's a winning vessel. It did not sink whatsoever.
I don't know who it's going to be next season. I did see a suggestion for the Yam Yam Yacht, which I'm a huge proponent of, so that would be pretty funny. But we'll have to wait till 44 to see.
Maybe the Carolyn Caravan could be a thing.
Carolyn
Carolyn with her rubbing her rocks also.
Yes.
Yeah, might be something.
I love that.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Liana.
Yes.
Cassidy.
So I had Cassidy making the jury. I said that she was strong enough in challenges to stay safe in the pre-merge and snuck into the jury phase where she was initially forgotten about by the players and the editors. But then she would be taken out at the split tribal council in a safe move from Ellie and Owen and Justine and Jesse to weaken Lindsay and Carla. So I was all about like the pairs this season. I said also that she will make clothing out of palm fronds / various materials around camp, and we get a fashion show 2.0.
No, they're making blankets out of them instead.
I know, exactly. Again, wrong person. Okay, allies were Lindsay and Carla. Enemy was Justine, and she had 23 confessionals.
Oh, okay. Well, Dave, just like award the next few points to Liana. This is going to be a blowout.
Oh no.
So, I was ready, Mike. I was ready to...
Yeah, it's your turn.
I know. Yeah. I appreciate your pity points emotionally, but logically, I can't allow them to happen. I had Cassidy going pre-jury.
Okay.
She does try to hold a fashion show on the beach to boost tribe morale.
Right?
It does not go well. She... Channeling her spirit animal of the fox, she tries to slyly hunt for advantages. She gets caught by the hound in James, and they decide to form an alliance. When Coco loses their first challenge, Ryan pushes for her to go as the weakest physical link. Okay. James furthers her target by selling her out looking for advantages. And in her final words, she encourages people to manifest their destiny and says, "Auf Wiedersehen," which I guess is a Project Runway reference. Her closest ally was James, and her enemy was Ryan. Good.
The James thing is really helpful. That helps you a little bit. Okay.
Confessionals, just 4.
4. No. 4. Oof. I was ready to give you half a point. I was ready to give you half a pity point.
And her phrase was, "He shaved the peach to prove a point."
Okay. All right. So here's what's gonna happen.
Swiftly moving on.
I award you no points. No, Leon, you're gonna split it. Leon's getting 3/4, and you're getting 1/4 because the James thing is spot on. Yeah.
Give me some of that pie, some of that peach pie.
Just 1/4 of it.
All right. Let me finish off with Gabler.
Oh no.
Suffice it to say, I did not have the loftiest predictions for how Mr. Gabler, our ultimate winner of the season, would do. Much like the person he finished first to in Cassidy, I had him going pre-jury. I said that he would initially bond with Sammy and Janine between Sammy's age and Janine reminding him of his daughter. Unfortunately, his tireless work ethic will bristle up against Janine and put him on the outs socially. So just like replace Janine with Ellie, and that kind of pans out for his pre-merge. Channeling his idol Rupert, he'll put a rock in his prospector hat, claiming it's a fake idol. I realize now, did we ever get that prospector hat on the season, or was it only the beanie?
I don't
think they ever
remember.
wore it.
Yeah.
It was definitely in those pregame photos. I remember that clearly, and it looms over me still. Yeah. Anyway, go on.
Out of everyone this season, he'll have the hardest time voting people out. I guess talking about this like bleeding heart emotional mentality of him. He gets voted out after going to Shipwheel Island, which makes the others on Baka realize his strategic harmlessness combined with him making bonds on the other tribe could spell trouble for them. Spoiler alert, it did. His closest ally was Sammy. His enemy was Janine. 17 confessionals for Gabler, and his randomly generated phrase, "Sometimes I stare at a door or a wall, and I wonder, what is this reality? Why am I alive? And what is this all about?"
Oh boy,
I could see him
hits.
saying that. That's not bad.
That could
be our hour 2 of an immunity challenge. I can see it. This next minute's for
doors and
windows.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we all doing here? When you said his idol Rupert, I didn't think like Rupert the Survivor player. I thought he had named his idol, his immunity idol Rupert, like Wilson, like the volleyball Wilson. And it was like, yes, his idol Rupert. I don't know why that was what I thought of, but that was the first thing that popped in my head.
I feel like Gabler would have named his idols
in
and
honor
advantages.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this one's Jeremy. This one's Ben.
Yeah.
This idol is
in this next minute's for Jeremy and Ben. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, I didn't look, Mike, I was on the same page. I also did not have Gabler going very far. I had him pre-jury. I said that in the preseason, Gabler said, quote, "I really am a little bit anxious, but also very excited to see what reveals myself to myself," end quote. To us, it was revealed that the Frenchie comparison was spot on. Gabler had so much energy on the island that no one could contain it. He was over there. Now he's over there. And his tribe felt like they could never escape him. And as a result, Gabler was blindsided by his entire tribe. I said his ally was the jungle and his enemy was caffeine withdrawal. And he had 25 confessionals.
Wow. So Cody, I mean, channeling that with his greatest enemy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I don't know where a lot of this came from, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, Gabler, I think, definitely foreshadowed his odd manner of speaking in his preseason stuff, right? With like proving myself to myself. The one thing I really stick out was when I asked him in the preseason, what will people perceive you as? He's like, well, I am a larger mammal, which again is one of the oddest things I've ever heard someone tell me in the preseason. And this man is now a Survivor winner. I love it.
I give a point to Mike, by the way, a pity point.
Yeah. That's fair. What was the thing that gave... Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Good. No, it's not important. talking about
mine's
his
not
character
either,
perhaps.
because I was gonna say
None
what
of
was
this is
the thing-
important.
Yeah, that's true. What was the thing that
Oh, yeah.
Gabler said about birthing his his
He said-
children hatched or something?
Yeah, he
What was
said
that
that
quote again?
he started watching Survivor before his children were born, before they were hatched. My wife
Yeah.
and I were watching
remember
Survivor
that.
from the very beginning.
Was that in your
And then, of
article?
course-
Is that right?
Uh,
I
and then, of
remember
course-
reading that.
And then, of course, things like, Ellie is playing both sides, and she may be playing all sides. The reason I threw out Ellie's name was to throw out Ellie's name. I think Owen told Rob in his exit interview yesterday, that, Gabler did a lot of word salad at Final Tribal Council, and they kind of picked out the best croutons from it. I think that makes a lot of sense, with all due respect to the man, given some of the phrases he's thrown out there before.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Mike, in your prediction, I think Janine as an enemy is not totally off, because Janine and Ellie were both part of the searching through the bag. So, and like the fact that he would make friends across the other tribes, I think you had like the Gabler essence there.
I'm
Ooh.
the Ode Gabler. I'm surprised, though. I think maybe one of the jury votes I'm most surprised by is Janine voting for Gabler. I'd be intrigued to get her thoughts on it, because again, the last thing we saw of her was Gabler outing that she had an idol and throwing her closest ally under the bus. I don't know if it was a matter of like Gabler talked about in the after show, them making personal bonds. It seemed like Janine and Ellie and Cassidy had a good relationship. So I'm not sure. Maybe time just heals all wounds when you're sitting there, though those wounds get reopened when you see your own bracelet get used against you at the final 5.
Yeah. Oof. The jaw dropping for
was-
however long. We know it's edited together. Her mouth could have been open for tens of thousands of minutes. We genuinely don't know, because it was edited together.
That was
such a
Alec.
great
That was
reaction.
Alec levels of mouth opening. Come on, Dulcert.
Yeah, but she brought it out in multiple occasions. When Gabler revealed the thing about, donating the money, her jaw flew open again. So, maybe she had this shock expression the entire time, and we just didn't see it the majority of the time.
I just imagine her parents, if you make a face like that, it's going to stick that way. Maybe that's what happened.
Yeah, and maybe the reason why nobody wanted to work with Janine, they're like, okay, Janine, who should we vote? She's like, and they're like, we can't understand you. We have to vote you out.
It's all coming together.
Oh my gosh, the editors didn't show us anything this season.
They didn't show us Janine's TMJ.
Oh my god.
The one other thing I want to talk about in terms of predictions, I did listen back, Liana, to our preview podcast, right, where we anointed superlatives. Some highlights here. Most likely to get a personal segment. We both hit it on the nose. You said Carla, I said Jesse. I think we got those pretty much in the premiere. Most likely to get a purple edit. I said Justine, which I do think in retrospect, I do think if you ask the casual that's not high from season 42, name the cast of Survivor 43, I do think Justine would probably be at the bottom, right?
I think so.
Probably.
I kind of forgot about her until I saw her. There was a bunch of tweets where she appeared in a bunch of people's tweets the last week. She was at some party, and I was like, "Oh, her, yeah."
Yeah, well, Rob talks about this, that the worst thing to be on Survivor is a second boot, because the first boot at least has that first one out type of energy around them, and usually it's a kookier character. If you're the second one out, nobody's going to remember that. Though again, we did have that streak of her, NECA, Lindsay, but with no offense to NECA or Lindsay, I would say that those three would probably be at the bottom in terms of, again, memorability for this season.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because you get Lindsay's flame out kind of thing, right? That's memorable in and of itself. And NECA at least survived 2 votes where she was considered, so you get the repetition. Maybe that helps with memory.
Yeah, Liana, you said James, which was interesting, because I feel like James had a really weird edit. It obviously wasn't purple, but it also felt like
I thought it was kind of purple. I actually think is that for how far he got. I didn't know anything about him. It seemed like by the end, maybe I'm
it
wrong.
was what do I remember? Okay, what do I remember about James? He was targeting Owen.
Yeah, he played chess.
I think Liana froze. We should get our internet fixed. Yeah, no, that's the thing. And it was through the perspective of Owen too. I didn't feel like we were getting confessionals from James, even in that. There was one where he was like, I was talking to Owen and he was mad at me, and then that was it.
And this poor man's voice subsisted on the jury as well. You'd think with a 2 weeks of rest, with not having to talk in the game, with plenty of water by his side and tea, that he'd be able to make it through. But Mike Holloway shows his face once more.
Do you think, honest question, and I'm not like, I obviously I was making fun of it a little bit there, but like, if that's Jane's permanent voice, I don't mean to make fun of it, but
It's
think
not. We've met him and talked with him. He does not
all
speak
right.
like that.
Okay, so do you think that actually affected his confessional account? That they were just like, the editors were like, oh God, no, we can't play that confessional.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, because I think like, you're trying to put together things that are little like quick soundbitey kind of things that are going to be memorable. And if there's anything that kind of detracts from that, then I think that would be a reason why you might not include that as a confessional, especially when it's someone who's not like incredibly super pivotal to the story that we hear their opinion.
There's also looking a bit behind the scenes, going back to Mike Holloway. It's also tough for continuity purposes because, listen, cards up, we know that Survivor sometimes likes to take confessionals from other episodes and put them into the episodes that they are most applicable. And what people noticed during Survivor Worlds Apart is like how hoarse Mike's voice was indicated like when that confessional was pulled from. And so maybe they didn't want to do that similar type of, I know Survivor production is very much nowadays in on like, we don't want people really, looking behind the scenes and looking at the man behind the curtain and tracking things down. So I think that would make sense. Maybe it's a reason, Liana, why like Johnny Mac was surprisingly quiet in terms of confessionals, just because no one wanted to be like hearing, okay, here we go for like 20 confessionals an episode.
Yeah, it doesn't really work for the Franken bites, but
so most likely to flip on their number one ally, you said Sammy, which I think was certainly had that energy to it, though I don't think he really had a number one ally. I said Gio, which ironically enough, Ryan accidentally flips on his number one ally on Gio, which I think is very funny. Most likely to start a podcast, I said Mariah, you said Dwight. Here's a very fun one. Most likely to get screwed over by an advantage, you said Dwight.
Yes!
Oh, fun.
Yeah, knowledge is power.
Though I guess Janine, was the main culprit of this, right? I mean, I said, I did say Owen, which I think makes sense from a certain perspective in that, like, he kept getting screwed over from advantages in a manner of speaking. But Dwight was a very good one. I mean, Dwight is one of those people that, like, presence was largely felt on a finale he did not appear in when I think about Survivor Castaways, right? Considering that idol, the talk at the after show about the Yankee swap that happened with Dwight there. It sucks that he missed out on the jury, but he was certainly gone but not forgotten.
Definitely.
And then the last thing was most likely to get memed by the fan base. I think I was right on the money this one with Gabler.
Yeah.
Even before I knew the Gabler Galleon was happening. You also said Cody, Ryan, and Gio. I was trying to think, like, were there any? I guess
shotgun approach. Let me just list like half the cast. I'm gonna get
what
one.
You said though was like, oh, the guys look like a much goofier, more proactive group than the women. So you kind of like shot your shot in that regard. I'm trying to think about. If I had to pick a number two, I think I'd have to say Carla. Because
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, like
I keep thinking of the football with Owen, but also I feel like she appeared in a bunch of other random things.
Well, I'm thinking about like the gifts that were made of her early in the season, right? Where she's like, doing like the surprise chipmunk reaction. So I think that would probably make her the consummate number two, but I don't think she was memed in like the, again, like laughing at you, not with you way that Gabler was.
I mean, you just got Gablered, right? That in and of itself, I think, even Gabler Galleon aside, you've just got Gablered is iconic.
Yeah, can you talk about that for a second? The people that may not have that point illuminated to them from like the end of October.
Oh my God, let me find the tweet. I feel like you retweeted it, Mike.
Did you? No, it was Rob. Rob, I think.
Okay, Rob retweeted it. Yeah, so this was from the Survivor CBS account, right? That tweeted it. And this was at the Ellie vote, if I remember correctly. So this was a meme that, so this was from October 27th. And it's a picture of Gabler with his beanie on. And it says, "You just got Gablered." And then it says, IYKYK #Survivor. If you know, you know, I believe is what the
David,
acronym.
As someone who creates promotional content, particularly trying to apply
No.
to like the
No.
of the word, how does this rate? I was going to say rates in a no on a scale of 1 to 10.
Unless you're being so there's one exception which we do often lean into is like if you know it's bad, like the ironic sort of like we did this very early in the post TikTok days was like sort of almost dad humor of like, hey, we know we're an old paper, and I'd just be like, I don't know what's going on, like that kind of thing. But this is not. This is like, oh, we nailed this one. That's what that feels like. I remember this tweet now. It doesn't.
And just to give like full credit where credit is due, there was actually a tweet from a day earlier, I believe. A Twitter user, Tommy Smokes, who actually tweeted, "You just got gay blurred," as a meme. And then Zach Wartenberger, it's Wartenberger, Zach, you better Wartenberger. He replied to the tweet saying, "Sorry, they used their meme steal advantage." Which is also just the whole thing very funny.
Memes is power.
Yeah.
Yes. My favorite Gabler one, at least recently, because I saw it this morning, was the I'm sure it's been around, but the Ali Gabler Animorph cover. It's a gator turning.
I love that. Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
Now imagine if, much like Tobias, Gabler had stayed in alligator form for too long and then had to go to the final 3 as an alligator.
Oh no!
He would have been. They would have needed a pool. They would have had to like bring a pool into tribal so he could be underwater.
Do you think an alligator can win Survivor, or does it have to be
at this point? Yeah, if Gabler can, an alligator can.
Yeah. Do we think Mark the Chicken stood a chance in Co-Wrong, right? I think that's a valid argument for us to make. He made the oh my God, the thing they don't do anymore that they used to do,
intro.
like the intro, with their faces and the hidden voices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was just saying, you say the thing they do that they used to do, they don't do anymore. Like that's a long list.
The final 4 vote is actually what I meant.
Yeah.
The final 2, rites of passage, loved ones visit.
I would love Mark the Chicken on the rites of passage. just clucking along while the music plays.
No, he isn't a part of it. He's doing it. He's not like, they're not like, oh, poor Mark.
No, that's what I mean. Like he's got his own torch and he's trying to, every time they try to say something about someone, he's just like, cluck, cluck, cluck. Yeah. Like I didn't know her. She's from different tribe. Cluck, cluck, cluck.
I have been a long proponent of specifically for Big Brother, but I can see it applied to Survivor too. When you get voted out, you are replaced with a Labrador Retriever, and so I think that if like I would love to see that. We could do it with chickens. I'm fine with that as well. Let's get more animals in there.
The way some people are talking about this jury decision, I think they would have wished it was replaced with dogs.
Labrador.
The dogs would have voted for Cassidy.
The dogs knew the truth.
It is a bit of the monkey if the monkeys eventually would type out Shakespeare or whatever. I feel like if this was if we just had a bunch of chickens and a bunch of chicken, like whatever they eat, feed in front of them, and each of them represented a person, that outcome would have made more sense. Here's
the thing though. I'm glad you bring this up because look, we look at the logo. Yeah, because we look at the logo of Survivor 43. Look in the corner of our screen right now. What is the logo of Survivor 43? An octopus.
An octopus.
Every year before the Super Bowl, there is an octopus that picks the winner just randomly. Was the outcome in front of us the entire time? That this was something that would be very much out of nowhere, maybe on paper, almost arbitrarily decided in comparison to the field, much like an octopus when picking sports.
It would explain the octopus on the logo, at least, because that never made sense. Wow. Yeah, it does feel like that. And it's ever so often, it's the thing about Gabler is he's not even the underdog. It's like the referee one, or like a fan that showed up to the Super Bowl.
You know what? It's not the Rams. It's not the Bengals. We're giving this one to the ref. The ref made it all happen.
The announcer. I don't know.
Oh my God. I tried to describe this to my coworkers, what happened with Gabler. And I was like, it's like if France wins the World Cup, but then in the background, there's a second bracket where Qatar somehow won the whole thing, comes in, plays France, and then they win. Like Qatar ends up winning the World Cup. Yeah, exactly. It's like a little
they're like, all right, here's the rematch of third place versus first place.
But I like the referee or a random fan walking in and getting voted. I like that better.
Oh my God. All right. Well, this wouldn't be the B&B if we didn't finish things off with one last game. And I was inspired not only by the outcome that I think left Survivor Internet scrambled, but also the word puzzle, right? Both the advantage hunt and the word scramble itself that produced, again, some lovely Gablerisms. The fact that he put a C sideways as a U, the fact that he thought a U was a V or a V was a U. Listen, the man is drained, okay? His eyesight was not exactly 20/20, quite literally. But I figured it'd be appropriate to do something that we haven't done this entire season. We're going to finish off with some anagrams here. So, super simple game. I'm going to read off an anagram of the name of a Survivor 43 contestant. You can have the list in front of you if you want to. I am not that cruel. I'm not going to make this dangerous. I'm not going to deprive you of supplies. So feel free to buzz in when you know what or think you know what the name is. Let's come out with unique buzzers. Liana, what is your buzzer?
Oh my gosh. The only thing that popped in my head was you cannot sign on a guaranteed home, but that's a little long. So I'm going to go with Gablerd.
Gablerd, there we go. Keeping the meme game strong, quote unquote, parentheses, was it ever strong? Dave, what about you? What's your call?
I have so many toys from TikToks in front of me, but none of them. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna say bang, and it's gonna be this little.
Yes.
Bang.
Oh, there we go.
Little gun, cartoony gun.
I love the theme park 4D effect as well.
Yeah,
it's fun. I feel like I'm in there talking with you right now.
It's a jump
All
scare.
right. So again, I'm gonna read an anagram. If there are multiple anagrams for this person, I'll keep reading them essentially until you get them. Buzz in if you think you know it. If you do, you get a point. If you don't, you don't. Let's start with perhaps an applicable one for this season. Archdeacon Messy. Archdeacon Messy.
Archdeacon Messy. Gablerd.
Yes, Liana.
Cody?
Yes, it is Cody Assenmacher.
Oh
Anagrams
God,
to
I gotta have the list in front of me now.
Archdeacon Messy, which is an incredible title that I need now. I don't know if this involves going to Vatican City or getting papalized or whatever. I want to be Archdeacon Messy. Other anagrams for Cody: Accessed Harmony, Carcass End Homie, and Camera Second Shy.
Oh,
are these ones you're coming up with your own, or are they generated? I'm sorry if you already said.
Oh, these are generated. I'm not nearly that talented.
I would love just the idea of you all night just staying up, coming up with Archdeacon.
No,
Messy.
I've got computers to do my job for me. I learned that with Chat GPI, that we can definitely get that done. All right, 1 point for Liana. Next one, Baguette Mason.
Oh.
Baguette Mason.
Okay.
Bang.
Yes, Dave.
Geo.
Yes, Gio Bustamante is correct. Some other anagrams for Gio besides Baguette Mason: Tugboat's Enema, which is one of my favorites.
I love that.
I don't like that imagery associated with it. It'll clean you out. A boatman guest. Here's a fun one: a Gabon musette, which I think a lot of people have been comparing this season to Gabon. A tugboat seaman, spelled the way you think it would. Or perhaps want it would.
Sure.
Amoeba gets ton. And finally, segue to Batman.
Oh. James Gunn's latest DC movie. Yeah.
Yes, I'm
exactly.
excited.
Starring Gio Bustamante. He's the segue. He's the DCEU savior that we needed all along. All right, next one. Hogtied Worm.
No. What?
Wait, say it. What's the first name?
Hogtied Worm.
Not hogtied worm.
No, I thought I had it, but I don't.
How about this? Hot dog we rim.
No.
How about
I got Bang.
Gablerd.
All right, I got it. Dave first.
Darn it.
Oh wait, no, I think I'm wrong. Oh,
All right,
no.
give me your guess.
Janine, that's wrong.
It's not Janine. Liana.
Is it Owen?
It's not Owen.
What?
It is Dwight.
Oh, I was looking for a W.
Oh, yeah, I was looking for
Dwight
a G.
Moore, anagrams to Hogtied Worm, Hot Dog We Rim, and my other favorite, Dig Whore Tom.
Yeah. Future contestant.
You think Jeff's going to say Dig Whore Tom?
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to dig deep, whore Tom.
Whore Tom.
Do you think it'll be like Tom is like this super dressed up erudite scholar and he's like, I want people to not expect I'm a brain, so I'm going to say I'm a male escort. And so Jeff is really just leaning into the lie.
I mean,
yeah, ironically, it'll be a season called Brains versus Beauty versus Escorts, but he's going to be on the Brain tribe.
Oh, no.
They're going to be like, everyone's going to be like,
cover.
And he's like, I'm undercover. It's illegal to be an escort. This was a trap. They're all under arrest.
This is a sex
yes, what are you doing?
This is a sting. All right, let's go to our next one here. car sick, sadly.
Oh,
Dang.
that's
Yes, Dave.
Lindsay.
Nope.
Oh my god.
oh no. Okay.
All right. Car sick, sadly.
Sadly.
Oh,
And to
I
make
got
it
it
fair
now.
for Dave, I will not give you any more ones. You just have to go off that one.
Oh, bang, Liana Gablard.
Yes, Bang Liana Gablard.
Okay, Cassidy.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Ugh.
Carsick sadly does anagram to Cassidy Clark. Also, Salsa Dick Cry.
Mm.
Oh goodness.
That's
Also, Crack Said Sly. And also, Ass Crack Idly.
Oh, okay.
So if you live
That's-
your
that's
ass crack
crack idly.
idly, you may get
Idly.
a
That's when they
tattoo
don't. That's
on
when they
it.
don't. That's when the editors don't blur out the crack. That's what it's called. Ass crack.
Yeah. All right. Next one. Wet honking.
Bang.
Gablard.
I'll go to Dave first.
Owen.
That's correct.
Yes. What?
Yeah.
You think if I text him that right now, he'll say yes?
Yeah, just say wet honking and see if he responds. But you could also ask him, you could also respond with the knowing, which is interesting because he was
Ooh.
not in the knowing. You could also go with whinge not, which I think also helps considering that he did whinge a bit due to his situation.
Oh,
But
whinge.
maybe the best name you should respond with, Dave, New King Hot.
Yes. I hope he claims that one. I'm excited to see which one he associates with the most.
I will say I did have Marianne approach me in DC, remembering the anagram that I found for her
Oh no.
back when we
Incredible.
did it for Survivor 42. It was honky something. That's what I.
But had you
specifically
remembered
remember.
it? Had you remembered it when she said it back to you? Or
No,
were you
she
just
approached me
like,
with this
"Is she
randomly
okay?"
phrase, and I thought I was supposed to give her an idol. I was like, what's going on here? So I'm so happy to remember this. But I think Owen, I don't know. You pick your poison. I think he may take the cake here. Not to look too far ahead. The knowing, whinge not, wet honking, and New King Hot.
New King Hot.
All right, let's go. Next up here, a grimy honor.
A grimy honor?
A grimy honor.
Honor or honor? Like
Bang.
Dave.
I guess it didn't matter.
Mariah.
That is correct. So
Okay.
yes, if you do go with the
honor.
Canadian spelling with the U in honor, then yes, it is
Honor.
a grimy honor. We also have for Mariah Young, hooray, gin rum. Yahoo, grim urn.
Oh.
Ahoy, rug miner. And roar, young him.
Why are
Ahoy
they
Rug
all...
Miner is actually, that's how they greet each other on the Gable Galleon. Like, ahoy.
Yeah. That's...
Specifically Sammy.
Yes.
They're all I'm 19. They're all like they're all exclamations, and I also got pirate theme from all of them. I don't know why, but Mariah, the new pirate on the game.
It can all be turned into sentences. Yeah, that's what's rare about Mariah.
So rare.
All right. Next one. Near many rod.
Bang.
Dave.
Ryan Medrano? I don't know.
That is correct. Yes.
What?
And we should have known the entire time that he'd be the fisherman. It wasn't him explicitly saying preseason that he'd be the provider, but the fact that his name anagrams to near many rod.
Naturally.
Well, 21 fish. What was it?
We
21?
also have a dam ornery. We have rad yarn omen, and we have rearm any dawn.
Rearm?
Rearm?
Oh,
Yeah,
rearm.
Like he's like, oh no, I'm all out of bullets. Like, don't worry, Don, I'll rearm you.
Oh, bang, bang, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on here. Cougar lazy dork.
Bang.
Dave.
Bang. Carla Cruz. Cruise control. Godoy.
That is it, and you are in control of this game right now. Yes, Cougar Lazy Dork for Carla Cruz Godoy. We also have Dark Gauzy Color as well, which I think is very mysterious.
Yes. Color my walls right now.
All right, next up, Bleak Grime.
Oh, Bleak Grime.
Bleak
Grime.
Grime.
Bang.
Dave.
Mike Gabler.
S, you are killing it right now. I did not
What?
include the second game.
Once I got
that is
that
correct.
list in front of me, it helped.
Bleak
That's it.
Grime. Other anagrams for our winner of Survivor 43. Make gerbil.
Okay,
Also,
yeah, that fits.
leak be grim.
Oh.
Ear beg milk.
Yes, that sounds right.
Ram bile keg.
Ew.
And finally, arm bike gel.
What's arm bike gel?
That's
Well,
when you're
when you
riding
get on
your
your
bike
bike,
and you get a
Uh-huh.
rash. Yeah.
yeah, like
for
the
your
wind
nipples.
resistance, right? Like if you're if you're running
exactly.
at super fast speeds and it's like, ow, my arm is chafing, then you rub some arm bike gel on it.
Just
Mhm.
Vaseline
Gabler
it
does
up. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm trying to look if there are any other ones. Yeah, I'll go through a few other ones here, even though Liana, I think, is unfortunately a bit out of contention at the moment.
What is this? I refuse to play Dave Jorgenson in this ever again. What is this?
Let me have this one because in past B&Bs, man, have I failed.
This is what we call well, you're the Justine Brennan, right? Like the first time you had a bad time, you went out early. This time you've gone on and soared.
I guess a guy who works for a newspaper knows his way around words. Fine, I guess.
Well, Liana, here's some redemption here. How about SEC toilet?
What?
Not toilet.
SEC toilet.
SEC toilet?
Yes, like the Security Exchange Commission's toilet.
What? Oh, I think I got. Wait, is this just for Liana?
No, you can do it too. You can do it as well if you want to extend your lead. No, it's not Noel.
Oh, there's no S. Yeah,
you have an idea, Jade?
Yeah, bangy, bang. Why did I say bang?
Bangy.
Little bangy bang. Ellie.
Yep, it's Ellie.
Oh, I had Elizabeth. Okay, gotcha.
We also have Lice Totes and Cost Elite for Ellie Scott.
Sure.
Let's see. What about a Daisy Mail?
A Daisy Mail. Well,
yes, Dave.
Wait. Oh, I'm in trouble. That's not gonna work. I just lost my guess. Okay, I'm just gonna say Sammy.
Nope, you're right.
Oh.
Oof.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mail,
no,
M-I-I-L, but I think I like his other anagram, which is Asia lay mid. I just like this idea of Sammy rating continents, but like Asia's pretty mid.
Yeah, it's B tier, you know.
He is he is Gen Z, so he'd be like, I don't know. Australia straight bussin'.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Sure.
Europe's
Why
got
not?
the Riz. Yeah.
FR.
Oh my god.
He does have that haircut, that like Gen Z haircut, right?
Oh, he does. In fact, yes. And that's so funny. I asked two members of my team, the two members who are both firmly Gen Z. I was like, what's with this haircut that everyone got? Did they get it? They didn't know what I was talking about. And I was like, it's a mullet. And they're like acting. I was like, come on. But eventually they knew it's a real thing. It was so it's the oldest I've ever felt, is trying to describe a haircut of someone younger than me, and they were just looking at me. I think they were just like knew it to mess with me by not.
You're
Yeah,
just
they're
setting
doing it
up for
on
when you
purpose.
inevitably go into the barber to get that haircut, and you're like, just do the thing.
Yeah.
Well, like
No.
kind of a mullet, but shaved on the sides.
Gen Z.
I don't want to show them this picture of Sammy. I want to be able to tell them what it's called.
All right, and last one, just for fun, Banner June Tins.
Banner June.
Justine. Do it bang, Liana, Gabler.
Yep, yeah, you're right. Yep, you're right.
Bang,
Bang, Liana Gabler.
Ew.
Is that an anagram in and of itself?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what does that stand for?
Justine also anagrams to jab intern nuns, which get vaccinated people. Also, nannies burn jet. And also, maybe in a more salacious headline, ninja burns teen.
Oh my God. I mean, I know he's been in a lot of controversy recently, but I feel like that's a big thing for a
teens.
streamer. Yeah. Ninja should get it together.
Well, Dave, much like the final tribal council, this was a runaway. Congratulations, sir. You are the anagrams champ. Perhaps unlike Gabler himself when it came to those word scrambles.
I accept this. Again, I won't gloat. I'll be like Owen. I won't gloat that I've won this immunity challenge, because I know that if we ever get to a final three, I'm not. The football's going to be taken from me. So
Well,
I'm going to quietly
that being
accept
said,
this.
as this presumptive goofy final three that we are, I guess any final statements that you have, in a manner of speaking, about Survivor 43? Liana, I don't know if there were any other like tangential details from your own research that you wanted to add in, but any other thoughts on this season that we just talked about over the past few months?
The only other things I have written down in my notes, well, I have a few things. One, the Gmail. No thoughts, just
Survivor shout out to gmail.com.
Yeah,
yes, we stand.
I want to see those emails so bad. Like release the emails. Okay, Elon, like if we're going to dox anybody, let's do that. So that's the first thought. The other thought is, what did Jeff, it was like meat burst. No, protein blast. What did he call the reward where he was like, it's going to be a protein
He did say
bird.
protein.
I think he called it like a protein burst.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but I'm obsessed with it. So protein burst. I kept calling it meat blast, and I know that's
Another
wrong,
anagram.
but I just that's how you can spell my name. And those are my thoughts.
Yeah, protein bass often lead to wet honking. That's yeah, I am obsessed with Survivor shoutouts at gmail.com because like I don't know why they decide the perfect time we want to launch our comment section is when arguably one of the most like contentious out of nowhere winners is announced. This is when we should truly open the floodgates and allow the people into our DMs. We'll see if it lasts to Survivor 44. I will say that.
Doubtful. It strikes me as like the sort of the game within the game that just disappeared. That we all forgot. Like it disappeared so quickly that the fact that no one even seemed to remember that it's gone.
At gmail.com. They couldn't even get it cbs.com.
Yeah.
Is it survivor shoutout at gmail.com?
I believe it's Survivor shoutouts at gmail.com. No, it's Survivor shoutout. You're right. It's singular. Survivor shoutout.
Okay, I'm just going to see if the email bounces back. So I'm just going to email them test and let's see.
Oh, they're going to think you're a bot.
So far it's gone through. So it hasn't, they haven't shut down the email quite yet, but it's only been 2 days. So I'll give them a little bit more time.
Who is this going to? Is this the Pearl Station on Lost where all the pneumatic tubes just wound up on a hillside that nobody's looking at?
It's the illusion of communication, right? It's like, let people feel like they have a chance.
Maybe it's extra tree mail to that point, Mike. It's like it does land somewhere, but it's just like if you're really bored and you're contestant on Survivor and there's no tree mail, they just send you, they print out the Gmail.
Oh, I like that. I'm just like, well, it's interesting because a lot of people jockey for tree mail. Like they a lot of people want to keep the tree mail from their season. And we learned this from the Jordan Kalish bead game. Maybe it's like, okay, we'll give you extra paper. Here's all these printed out emails, but our emails that we got from the commenters about the season.
Yes.
Dave,
but our Gmails.
But our Gmails. Dave, any final thoughts you have about Survivor 43 and what we have engaged in with all the malarkey over this past fall?
I think this is, and I always like the optimistic view, but I think it's a building block season. I think there's like elements of this that are really like good parts of this season. And I think that some people, like people on 45 and 46 will watch it and there'll be some takeaways, including a takeaway of like, I don't want to be a part of a jury that votes for someone who doesn't deserve it. You know what or not, I shouldn't say that. Gabo deserves it, but I just mean that like, I think there'll be a little bit, people will watch this and think about it while they're on the island. So I think it's one of those seasons that it's not terrible. It's not amazing necessarily, but I think it'll contribute to better seasons.
I think it's a really interesting season. I'm still having a tough time like placing it in the grand spectrum of rankings just because you talk about that journey over the destination and there was like so many things that happened during the journey. I mean, we're coming off of what some people were calling like the best episode of the modern era, one of the most impressive moves of all time, the most brutal blindside of all time in what Jesse did. And then we sort of end at this outcome. And it's not to, again, slight the winners or the finalists whatsoever, but it just feels almost a bit like Owen night and day, if you will. So it's a really intriguing season. I really like your point, Dave, as to, I wonder how people from Survivor 45 are going to look at this because this will be the last complete season they'll watch before going out. It could be a case where they'll look at someone like Gabler, someone who's like constantly in the middle playing all sides and be like, let's screw the big threats. Let's take them out because chances are we don't want to be Carla. We don't want to be Jesse and then have someone like this slip through to the end and win. So it's interesting to see maybe like the philosophy of the game has swayed a bit from 41 through 43 of like, don't stick your neck out too far or all the big threats are going to get cut before the final three. Maybe perhaps back to like, Yeah, but we got to watch out for the people that are lurking in the shadows as well. This was a whack-ass finale that produced an outcome that has burned down the Survivor internet for the first time since Edge of Extinction. And it was an absolute, like, just absolute insanity to check out on Wednesday night. But I am grateful for the time, as I do anytime I get to watch a Survivor season, like spending the time with you, Liana, spending the time talking with guests like Dave, and just like parsing it through. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater of like this season entirely, as odd as the outcome may have been at the end. Because again, I think there were so many interesting moments, and perhaps to a point you made earlier, especially in retrospect, as to like things that were maybe hiding in plain sight, things we didn't realize the entire time were being set up. There's a lot to chew on. I'll be sure to talk about it more with Rob and Shannon next week. But I'll throw it back to you, Dave, for a second, because this season fittingly ended on this note of charity, right? This like history-making, record-breaking idea of Gabler coming out of nowhere in the finale to say he was going to donate all of his winnings to charity to support veterans and mental health among them. Of course, we at the B&B like to have our guests highlight any charities or causes that are important to them. You don't need to give $1 million to it if you don't have those funds, but is there anything that you'd like to highlight in particular?
Oh my gosh. I thought about this morning. I had such a good one. Liana, talk while I try to remember what it was, because I wrote it in my phone somewhere.
Okay, yes. So I guess I'll give Gmail and Protein Blast aside. I'll give my like actual final thoughts on the season, because I think that this is something that I think overall I was probably higher on the season than most people, both throughout the season as well as the finale. I think to me, there were a lot of people that I was personally invested in, which really helps my interest in the season. So even when the gameplay is not necessarily like the most exciting, there's still something there for me to be invested in and to be interested in. I also think it's going to be very interesting on a rewatch, ultimately knowing the outcome. And so I'm very excited to experience that as well. So I think overall, I mean, I'm okay with the season. I think it was obviously brought out of a lot of emotion, which is always fun. And I'm just looking forward to closing the chapter on this, going into 44, and then revisiting 43 at another date.
Yeah, because 44 looks freaking wild.
Oh my
apparently.
God.
Incredible.
We got people falling off rocks. We've got like Beast Mode Cowboy 2.0. People are rubbing dirt all over themselves, pooping in the ocean. Like, we're in for a fun time. And let me also use this as like a blanket reminder. I hope anyone doesn't need to hear this who's listening to this podcast, but like, please do not go after jurors or players for an outcome that if you did not want to happen, happened. Please do not take that out on those people proper. We are watching things through a very edited lens. These people were basing their votes on relationships and other factors. Even if you disagree with the logic that they used, that is never an excuse to personally attack these people that put their lives and their emotions and their vulnerability on the line to have us watch them week in and week out. So just want to put that out as a blanket reminder. Dave, I'll throw it back to you. Did you have something in mind?
I do. I'm sorry. So I didn't explain this well. The Washington Post has something called the Washington Post Helping Hand, and it donates to a few charities. And there's one specific one, and I knew it was something kitchen. It's Miriam's Kitchen, and it's to help end chronic homelessness in DC. Because in any major city, but DC, it's especially bad and unfortunate. And there's many reasons why, but one of them is that they closed a bunch of shelters in basically all of downtown DC. So there's almost no place for people to go. So Miriam's Kitchen is a great one for that. And I definitely would love to highlight that. And really any other, I obviously do your research on them ahead of time, but I think a lot of these ones for homelessness are really important, especially as cities continue to not put money into it. So these other organizations become more important.
Well, Dave, thank you as always for taking the time to come on, especially after an episode like this where we are kind of picking up the pieces as to what happened. It was definitely a communal job, not an easy one, but I think you passed with flying colors.
Thank you. Thanks. And please invite me back whenever you can, whenever you want to. I love this. This is my favorite. I love the random games.
Gladly. We will happily welcome you aboard our own Gabler Galleon and Amanda speaking. And of course, shout outs to everyone who came as guests this season as well. Kirsten McInnes, Sasha Joseph, Kevin Jacobs, Jordan Kalish, Gabby Pescuzzi, Peridium, Frail Mary, Chappelle, Grace Leader, Beth Dixon, Mari Forth, and then of course Puya, Jenny, Phil. we really adore doing this, truly. Again, it's odd, Liana. I know I mentioned this milestone before on podcast. We've been doing this for 5 years.
Yeah,
And even through some of the weaker seasons, even through some of the most WTF outcomes, we've always found ways to kind of just talk about the silliness, the goofiness that comes with this show that we adore so much. And so again, even in circumstances where people may not be particularly happy with things that might result from this show, I think we've tried to come in with that lighter aspect and not to obfuscate, obviously, issues or things that are being talked about on the show that are very serious. But I like the little silly corner that we get to reside here in on the Survivor internet. And it makes me very happy to not only have guests that will play along with us as well, but also a lot of people that have been listening and showing support, not only this season, but for the past 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's it feels a little bit of like a comedy haven. I don't know if that's the right word to talk about, but it's like not that the real issues don't exist and not that we haven't addressed them here, right? When we talk about like, oh, how different, genders are perceived on the show and like how a certain person's game like might be addressed. I mean, I think those are obviously valid conversations that absolutely have to happen. I also believe that we have to learn about tugboat enemas. It's a valid part of Survivor as well. And so doing these anagrams and having the time to just like laugh and joke and just think about the ridiculousness of the season, I think is always a good time.
Absolutely.
It's a good wet honking time for sure.
Right?
A good wet honking time is a great way to describe the B&B. So obviously we are all on our various corners doing different things in terms of coverage, social media stuff, etc. Dave, we'll start with you as the most online of the three of us. If people want to check out the stuff that you're doing out there, which is a lot, how can people follow you?
I'm very online, unfortunately, still, just as last time we met. So you can follow the post account at Washington Post on TikTok, and my personal account, my TikTok account, Dave Jorgenson, which more recently I'm attempting to post there quite regularly. So follow that there. I'm also on Twitter until I get banned at Dave Jorgenson, and you can follow me on Instagram at Dave Takes Pictures. So I'm doing all kinds of TikTok stuff and big plans for 2023. Really big plans if it all goes to plan. I sound like Gabler. Anyway, that's my word salad, and please follow me on those.
Well, it is a delicious word salad at that. Liana, what's going on with you?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Liana RHAP. We've locked up The Masked Singer. Survivor is done, but Drag Race is right around the corner.
You sound like The Masked Singer is some sort of caged animal.
Look, don't get me started. Anyway, Drag Race is coming, and it's on MTV. So speaking of ridiculousness, we're going to have ridiculousness lead into Drag Race every week, I'm sure. So that's going to be back early January. We're going to be doing a preview show in that first week of January, and then January 6th is going to be the episode. Also, Lego Masters wrapped up this week. So my sister and I got the opportunity to interview the winners. No spoilers here, but we talked to the winners of Lego Masters Season 3, and then we're also going to be doing finale coverage, and that'll be coming out this weekend.
Awesome. So you can follow me, of course, at a Mike Bloom type. I had a very fun night on Wednesday night. Got to talk almost immediately after the finale ended with the final 5, Gabler, Cassidy, Owen, Jesse, and Carla. And it was awesome. I really did enjoy this cast overall. Just like an interesting balance of like the kooky with the personal stories, with, the ability to go out there and like make these big gambits. It was a very interesting group overall. And I am so honored that I got the opportunity to talk with all 18 of them all season long. They gave a lot of interesting comments. Gabler obviously outlining his strategy, some of the relationships we didn't see. Owen and Cassidy discussing their reactions to the final tribal council. Jesse obviously talking about, his own game and specifically his response to the fan response behind the Cody blindside, something he never thought he'd get commended for on the level it did. And then, of course, Carla, first clarifying some statements as to whether or not she did go through with that quote unquote promise to slander the jury against Cassidy, but then also talking about the representation she brought. She was someone who came onto the show and applied because she said, there's no one out there that's playing like me who looks like me. And her being able to show that, I think it's just a really great reminder of how much I personally enjoyed this cast. So feel free to check all that out over at parade.com. Of course, The Amazing Race finished last week. And this week we did a really fun podcast. Myself, Jess, and Rob did a deep dive with the winners, Derek X and Claire. just a ridiculously fun time. Those two are hysterical. We heard so many behind the scenes stories, like how, Derek accidentally almost drank and drove in the first leg of the Amazing Race. It was 2 hours of pure malarkey, but so much fun. If you're an Amazing Race fan, a Big Brother fan, highly encourage that you check all of that out. When it comes to what's coming up next for reality TV, as I mentioned before, RHAP is looking to do some 2022 in review podcasts. So I'll be doing one next week with Rob and Shannon Gus, summing up Survivor 42 and 43, maybe talking a bit international Survivor. Also going to be doing one for The Amazing Race, which aired 2 seasons in 2022. So I'm excited. This was a big year for reality TV. A lot of stuff happened. So I'm very much looking forward to talking about that. And then over on post-show recaps, we're doing a similar series with obviously a lot more shows. I just did a roundtable about superhero culture. I'm doing one about Star Wars shows. I'm talking Westworld. I'm talking Lord of the Rings. I'm talking a bunch of different things that have happened in 2022.
You could see your child at some point too.
I do. That's what the holidays are for. That's what the long off season is
Hands
for.
down to just in this lab.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and here he is. He's been with me. He's been the one. He gave me the anagrams all along. Where do you think that talking came from?
Right.
He has little letter tiles that he's just been rearranging on a chalkboard. And then when the new year comes around, lots of great coverage there. Rob, Jess, and I are going to be back in our Tough as Nails hard hats, which is coming back in early January. Excited for that. I'm going to be covering The Last of Us as well, which I'm very excited about coming to HBO. So lots of stuff happening. But before we know it, like as soon as we sit down at the end of this journey, we're going to get right back up because March 1st, I believe, is when Survivor 44 is going to premiere. And then, of course, in the time leading up to that, I'm going to have interviews that I did with the Castaways preseason probably throughout February. So, like, you take a breath, you go through the holidays. Before you know it, it's 2023, and we're 2 months out from another Survivor season.
I know. It's wild. Right around the corner.
It's life.
Well, I
like
hope everyone enjoys their holidays, enjoys their time off, their island time off in a manner of speaking. And again, thank you all so much for listening. Again, we do some very stupid things on this podcast, and anyone who indulges us in this stupidity, even an iota, I adore you so much. And thank you for listening all season long. It was a very, very fun season to cover. Special thanks to Scott St. Pierre for editing everything behind the scenes, Will from America for his fantastic theme song, and of course, Rob Cesternino for giving the green light to all these shenanigans in the first place. Liana and I will be back prior to the premiere of Survivor 44 to preview it all. Until then, we'll check you out at your next stay.